So my name is Bill Schroyer. Paul said I'm actually the Senior GIS Analyst with the Long Range Planning Division of Wake County Planning Department. I'm going to talk to you today about a community assessment index that we've created in support of several different county initiatives, as it turns out. What I'm using actually is a map journal from ArcGIS Online. So I'm going rogue, getting away from the PowerPoint, and tried something a little bit different. Generally, it's nice to have interaction with your maps. That's something that PowerPoint doesn't always have, so that's why I tried to implement into this presentation. There you go, you got
it. Is that everything?
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in 2012, the Wake County Human Services Department, they needed a way of understanding the community that they were trying to support around the Crosby Garfield building, which was historically a segregated school. It's a historic building that they've been using, and they wanted to renovate. And county management wanted to know how do they better understand the needs of the community that this building would be supporting for their purposes of renovating it. The Human Services Department has a Inform Committee, or Information Network for Ongoing Resource Management. Okay, and within this committee, their task is to gather information for data-driven decision-making. Their mission statement is to identify and select key indicators that measure multiple factors that affect the lives of residents for a snapshot of the Wake County community. Okay, GIS fits very well into that. I think you all know that. So they had already identified a series of indicators that they wanted to know what would best fit to use to understand the community around them, what we had available, and there was a fairly quick turnaround, as with local government there usually is. So they came to the planning department to see what we had available and some of the things that they had already identified. All right, so just a real quick diagram of what the Inform group is actually doing. They're trying to identify broader conditions down to a smaller subset of citizens so they can better support and make more informed decisions on how they're supporting them. So the Inform group had identified several characteristics. Specifically, they had some that fit with the U.S. Census American Community Survey. Age dependency, no diploma, no high school diploma, unemployment, persons below poverty, and housing vacancy rate. And they already had these identified as characteristics, but they didn't really know exactly how to go about collecting them or measuring them for the purposes of a project specific to this community around the Crosby Garfield building. And as everybody can see, we have a map of Wake County. That's at the block group level. We'll get to that in a second. So to use this data and understand how we can kind of start creating measures, we did some research, and we found that there's some precedent for how this data has been used in the past when combined. So the characteristics themselves along with several others, have been used in the Nelson A. Rockefeller Institute of Government Urban and Metropolitan Studies. They created an urban hardship index, which compared economic conditions of American cities in 2004, and the City of Los Angeles Health Atlas, Plan for a Healthy Los Angeles, actually used several of these data sets in an index type format along with several others in order to make informed decisions about what's going on throughout their county. We also found that UNC, Center for Urban and Regional Studies, used census tracts, but they also used poverty rate, per capita income, and unemployment as indicators for distressed criteria that in a study that they were doing. So again, there was some precedent for using this type of data. We chose to use it at the block group level, and this is what we found. So what is the American Community Survey? It's part of the U.S. Census Bureau, and it's a survey of smaller sampled populations that are averaged over 5 years, and then they report it every other year. So the release at the time that we started this project was in 2012, and that 5-year average data would have been 06 through 2010. These data are available at Block Group, which is the most granular geography that the data is actually available in, and that's helpful. You can see that the block groups vary in condition, right? And they vary in geography too. So depending on where you're looking, there's multiple variations throughout the county. And aside from just the Crosby Garfield building, we decided that if we were going to do this, we were going to just go ahead and do it for the whole county, and then go from there. And this way, we would have the ability to answer any other questions outside of just that specific community. So what we looked at for the ACS characteristics, American Community Survey, are percent of persons living below the federal poverty rate, percent of unemployed civilians age 16 and over in the labor force, percent of youth under age 18, and percent of adults age 65 and over, percent of vacant housing units. That's actually our only, could you close that back door for me? There's glare coming off of the stainless out there. Thank you. Percent of vacant housing units is actually the only environmental variable we have, but it's important to pull something in that's just not specific to socioeconomic demographics, but what kind of conditions are people living in. And the percent of adults aged 25 to 64 who did not earn a high school diploma or GED. Okay, so these were the percentages from the ACS that we pulled together. All right, so what did we do? Now, this was a request from county management. We're working interdepartmentally with our Human Services Department, and there may be other departments along the way that we'll end up interacting with. So one of the keys here is easy methodology. As it turns out, makes it more reproducible and easier to explain. And it also broadens to a little bit of a wider audience. So what we did, you can see the 4 criteria here at the bottom. There's actually a 5th one in there, and the percentages. So it was a basic sort and ranking analysis. Each percentages were sorted from highest to lowest, and then using the sort geoprocessing tool, actually given a score. So 455 we made. That's actually the highest. All right, so it would be the highest percentage of people in that condition in that block group. We did that for all 5 of them, added them across those scores across the board, and then sorted again on those scores, and then ranked the final ranking of 1 through 455. All right, so 1 being the least vulnerable communities, having the least impact of those 5 characteristics, and 455 having the most impact from those characteristics. So there we have our index, all right? So as we summed the characteristics across the block groups, we ranked these and have the score from 1 through 455 The red in this case is showing the block groups that have the largest impacts from these vulnerable, or the most vulnerable from these characteristics. Okay? And you can kind of see what we did here, I think. Yeah. So, for example, a 388, that's pretty high. And then, quick graph, you can see that they are, in fact, just based on the percentage of each of those characteristics, they're very high. The bar chart shows that they're very high in most categories. As compared to some of the other ones, if we look at something like that, actually 430, actually, the one I picked, as it turns out. But age dependency actually isn't as high as the no diploma score, right? So, we have a good understanding of what's going on there from the individual characteristics and actually how they rank against each other throughout the county. As it turns out, the study that UNC did also identified the same tract that we identified as being very vulnerable. That's number 9. We identified the block groups, but they identified that tract where the Crosby Garfield building is as being a, they call it distressed, we call it vulnerable. So there's some correlation there from some other studies. We went a little further. We had some opportunity after presenting this to management, and we combined the Human Services regional center zones that they support. We have 4 regional centers, and they support these zones, and we aggregated those scores up to those zones so that we could report to the people who operate the Human Services regional centers kind of what condition their overall zone that they support was in, what kind of conditions they had. And actually what we found, although the scores varied, we found age dependency to be significant for all of the zones. And again, that's because we have some younger population pressures for families with young children, and we have some aging in place. This one in particular, we've done several studies on the southern zone. We have an aging in place population 55 and over in that area, and we didn't really know that before, or we didn't know a way of measuring that. It was mostly just the field work that the people were doing from our Human Services Department, just reporting that we have a lot of seniors coming to us looking for some of the services that we provide. So as we were doing this in 2012, there was a new release of the data, and we took the opportunity to take that and we repeated the process from 2008 to 2012 data. So we took the 06 through 2010, and then we turned around and did that again for the 08 to 2012, ranked it, scored it, and then just to kind of see how we were doing, if there was any kind of revelation out of this. I took the top 20%, right, which was the 91 block groups out of the 455 that scored the highest out of both of those data sets, and I compared them and ended up with 125 block groups. Did a simple subtraction just to see what kind of change had occurred according to the ACS between those time periods and the conditions. And as you can see, there is actually some improvement. The green is improved, the red is not. That's actually a negative score, which suggests that its conditions were getting worse. And we have what backs that up. So you can see here the 2012 rank is 380, where before it was 273. And we can just quickly see that vacancy rate increased from 243, that's the score, to 346. So, what that's telling us as an impact actually from the recession was that block group was hit pretty hard from foreclosures. All right, and the idea here is that these may not be the actual answers, but it gives our staff an indication of maybe what is occurring out there, and then something to investigate further. All right, and then see if the regional centers are seeing the same thing, if there's anybody reporting these same conditions, and is there a better way of helping them overall in support from the county. So ultimately, the resulting data set is somewhat of a root cause analysis for what, where, who. The what generally describes the socioeconomic conditions conveyed by the U.S. Census for what is happening in those areas. The where is generally describing the geographies. It could be block groups, but it doesn't have to be, because it could be more of a condition of a neighboring community impacting the other community, or not necessarily the granular level of where in terms of the block group, but maybe a larger area of a municipality, an ETJ, or human service zone. And then the who generally comes in as a secondary concept, because what we're planning on doing, and we've started doing this, is try to kind of bounce our client data off of there. We have some data for veteran services. We have data for some paratransit, for example. So by comparing those geocoded points of our clients against something like this index, it's our goal to try to understand kind of service demand delivery for the citizens in Wake County, and demonstrate good stewardship to the county residents. That's it. Any questions? It is not completely publicly available. What I'm trying to do is get it set up so that I have some kind of web interaction, kind of like I'm doing now, on our webpage.
You indicated what type of ArcGIS web app you built that into.
This is ArcGIS Online,
Right.
all right, and this is the map journal. It's called. There are other kind of apps for Arc Online that you can fold these maps into, and that's kind of what I'm sorting out now, while I'm updating another ACS data set.
Did you work with the Wake County Transit people at all? Because they just came out with some big study that used a lot of the same data, I think, to try to figure out where the most needed public transit.
Yeah, no, I did not, but not for this in particular. I believe they hired a consultant.
All right, any other questions for Bill? What things I do with Bill?
So that kind of got tied up in some government bureaucracy, and they're still debating on how they're going to renovate that. Yes, we're really just kind of rolling it out. It's made a big impact with that the Human Services Zones report that we did, because it gave that informed group some material to rally around and say, okay, this is what we want to see. Now, what else can we compare against that? And they've had several meetings. Something called the Gold Coalition, I believe it is, which is 55 and over. It's our committee from Human Services side that are trying to use this type of information to better understand who they're supporting. So it's the ball has started to roll. Anybody else?
All right, thanks, Bill.
Great, thank you.
Gee, so it's